Well, good afternoon and welcome to Over the Vast Nurseries. It's a beautiful day in late summer, certainly a little on the toasty side. The temperature today is reading well into the 90s. There's a lot of kind of sultry, humid weather, and also the intensity of the sun is beating down on our plants. But in a way, this is kind of appropriate because the plant that we have here is, if you haven't already guessed what it is, it's a variegated variety of lily turf. This is actually known botanically as Liriope, and the variety is Silvery Sunproof. And as that name suggests, I think you can guess how this is a plant that grows very well in those sort of conditions. In fact, it's probably one of the most durable plants that I know and very valuable in a whole selection of sites in our gardens. It looks like a little variegated grass, but actually this is a member of the asparagus family, and it has these long, elongated, variegated, waxy leaves here that are remarkably tough and reliable. And once it gets established, this is a plant that will do in a wide variety of situations. We like to plant this alongside paths and walkways. It's a great plant to put in belts of ground cover. Makes a wonderful edger to beds and borders, and putting in between shrubs and even other forms of evergreens. And if you have banks that are sloping hillsides that perhaps are subject to some erosion, you can plant these on at quite close centre, say about 2 foot 18 inches, 2 foot apart or so, and in no time at all it'll make a solid carpet of this beautiful variegated foliage. And I like to use this also in contrast with rocks and boulders. So if you're thinking about putting down, say, a gravel garden or a rockery or something like that, and you're able to contrast this very nice foliage with those kind of rough, rustic looking boulders and rocks, then that's very effective looking. It fits in a wide variety of places. It will literally grow, as the name suggests, out in full sunlight. Probably the best place to grow it is in a partially shaded situation, and it will also grow in a shady situation too. So sun, partial shade and shade, it will take all of those conditions. And when you take it and plant it first, you do need to water it to get it to establish. But once it's established, you'll find that this is really remarkably robust and reliable and needs very, very little maintenance. And that's what makes it such an outstanding plant. Only growing about 1 foot to maybe 15 inches or so high. It's got these grass-like leaves that spread out here with a kind of very nice architectural feature. And therefore, this is a lovely plant to put inside walkways and patios to leave perhaps areas of ground cover intercepted every now and then by taller plants. There's a wide variety of places you can use this. Also, it's very handy for putting in round the base of trees. One of the few plants that once you get it established will actually do quite well in those very difficult conditions in quite close to the base of a tree. There's other places too, I'm sure, that if I had a moment or two to think about, that this would grow. And really, if you're looking to find a place where it won't grow, if you take a wet, soggy, wet old area, that would probably be some of the few places where it doesn't really survive. As you see now in late summer, it's producing these flower stems that come up here with this little lavender flower spike that sticks up above it, which is quite pretty. And later on, it will carry little blackberries on it too, though really it's the variegated foliage that we're growing it for. In springtime, in the early part of the year, it will come out with more of a yellow lemony margin to the leaves, and then as we progress through the summertime, it lightens up to become more of a white silvery shade at this time of year. And I'm not sure if I mentioned it earlier or not, but this is to all intents and purposes an evergreen plant too. So besides all of those things that I just talked about, it also has foliage that pretty well lasts through the whole of the year. And about the only maintenance it needs is a haircut in springtime. After the worst of the winter passed, sometimes the tips of the leaves here will get burnt a little bit, in which case you can take a pair of shears or a knife or secateurs or something and just go in and just give it a haircut, and then the new growth will emerge from the middle, from the center of it. And if you want to find out more about that, we published a video probably about 18 months, 2 years ago, showing how I trim them back in my garden. They don't need a whole lot of fertilizer either. In fact, these are really quite light feeders, so don't need to give it a whole lot of fertilizer. But if you wanted to kind of boost them a little bit, you could put some slow release fertilizer around them in the springtime. Like all plants, to get them off to a good start, it's worth getting good ground preparation going. So I would suggest that you dig a good generous sized hole, work in some organic matter, and like I mentioned earlier, give them a good watering until they get established. After that, you can pretty much leave them alone on their own, and you'll find that they will do very well there. This is really a zone 6 plant and warmer, 7, 8 and so on. I've seen this survive in colder areas, zone 5s, in protected, sheltered spots. But really, zone 6 is what we're saying on our tags when you read them. And when you go in to look at these in our partnering garden centres, you'll be able to find out all the information that's written here on the tags, giving you further suggestions and things that you might want to do with them too. And you might be interested to know that this is a plant that has actually been renamed. As far as I understand it, it's a variety that originated in Japan with, as far as I'm concerned, a totally unpronounceable name. I'm not very good at pronouncing Japanese names at the best of times, so I won't even try to pronounce that. But in the 1960s, when it was introduced from Japan, somebody came up with a very descriptive name, Silvery Sunproof, and that suits me just fine because it's descriptive and it's easy to pronounce and also easy to remember. Now, when you go along to some of our partnering garden centres, you're likely to see this in two different sizes. First of all, there's this size here, what we call a true gallon size plant. Nice, big, strong, vigorous plants that when you put them in will make an almost instant impact. We also grow them in a smaller pot that we call a little cutie. Those are a little bit more economical, and if you're planting them out in larger numbers, might be the ones that you would choose. Whichever size you choose, I think you'll find that this is really a remarkable evergreen perennial that can be used in a wide variety of places. And another thing that I should mention about them too is that normally things like rabbit and deer leave them alone. So as you see, there's really a lot going for it. This is really a remarkable plant that I hope you get a chance to plant somewhere around your home. This is Liriope Silvery Sunproof.